and
Jerry Spencer.
and this is a moment or two of history or something like that. And
Halloween edition.
yes, did you notice? Of course, wearing a mask is not, it's usually a different type of mask these days. But all I have to do is cover my nose and my mouth and I'm good, right?
Well, you got your nose, but the mouth is still a problem. Oh, yeah. Your mouth is still a problem.
Yeah, it's always been my issue. So today we're going to talk about what, Sherry?
We are going to talk about Halloween at the turn of the century.
So Avon Lake and what people did to celebrate All Hallows Eve. Is that correct?
All Hallows Eve. That's an interesting term, isn't it?
So where are we going to start?
So I thought we would start with the late 1800s and talk about how stressful Halloween was to residents back in the late 1800s.
Okay.
It sounded like they had some, and it was always boys. I saw no mention of girls as I was looking through old articles about this. And they were pranking their neighbors, and not in funny ways, but in sometimes hurtful and destructive ways. And
so
definitely
pranking was different then.
Yeah. It involved essentially two main components, one being noise and the other being tomfoolery. So for the noise, tomfoolery, yeah. For the noise, favorites were beating pans, rattling cans, ringing cowbells to annoy peacefully. The other component was removal of property and redistribution of some property. And it would include front steps.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that people would take somebody's front steps away?
Take them away.
I would only do that if I could watch them walk out and break their neck.
Well, that's probably why they did it.
I wonder if they would knock on the door and then take away their front. I mean, that'd be a...
Well, think about it. The people are getting up early the next morning, and if they're getting out and going to work, it's dark because we're at the end of October.
That time of year.
November.
Wow.
And, you step forward and there's no step there, and that's not a pretty sight.
No, but I wish I'd have thunk of that when I was that age.
Today, you'd end up on YouTube if you did something like that, Step out your front door and...
Make money at
it. So also, there'd be missing and relocated farm implements, gates from people's homes. And then those would later be found in very unlikely places, like hanging from tree limbs.
Did you ever do anything like that?
First of all, no. And secondly, if I had done anything like that or similar, I wouldn't tell you.
But I remember I don't know if I did it or my sister did it, but...
Oh, good duck and hide.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure who did it. I don't think it was me. I think it was my older sister, but they put a neighbor's swing set up on the roof of their barn with the help of, stuff like that. We used to take for sale signs and move them from one house and then put 20 of them into somebody else's house.
That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, it was. It was more fun for us than it was for them trying to figure out where the signs go back.
I'm sure. That's good for a chuckle.
Yep.
And so you'd also find stuff hanging from lamp posts, chairs, and what have you.
Wow.
And they would have fun with business signs. They'd switch people's business signs. Easier to do back then, because remember, you'd see a sign suspended from out front of a particular business, right? And so they'd switch them up, and they'd put the Undertaker sign over the doctor's door and put the doctor's sign over, I don't know, some random person's door.
That's pretty good. Some of these ideas are still potentially good today.
Ooh, well, maybe we shouldn't be sharing all this then, huh?
I mean, I thought waxing windows was cool,
Well, they were doing that too. Paraffin, they called it.
Oh, paraffin.
Paraffin, yeah.
Okay.
So some of the newspaper reports and articles that would come out in the late 1800s and even early 1900s were interesting. Here's one from 1883, and they make reference to the howling idiots who will roam through the streets and make life burdensome.
That sounds like Yoder.
Yeah, maybe it is.
I
And
don't
then
know.
And then we've got one from November of 1893, which followed the Halloween observance and talks about the winds being on a mad frolic, joining hands with elfin sprites or bodies of the Scottish lore.
Whoa. You have to have a dictionary to go through that again and figure out what the heck they were talking about.
and those creatures would rattle window casements and shriek as they whirl around corners, whistle through cracks and crevices, as if intent on calling out the young people to wreak mayhem on the community.
Didn't Sherry? We used to have 2 nights of Halloween. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, the first was called Beggar's Night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we had Beggar's Night, and that's where you went out and got all the candy you could get. And then Halloween, you got to do it again.
Yep. And my mother told me that when I was a little, very little, probably my first permitted Halloween experience, I went out on Beggar's Night, went back out again on Halloween night, and the third night, when she told me I couldn't go out again and get more candy, I cried.
Yeah, I could see you doing that.
Yeah, you know what my first Halloween costume was? The mask was a pig. a pig face.
We always had the old standby hobo, and we made everything ourselves. We had a piece of burnt chalk, listen to me, a piece of burnt cork, and you would blacken your face like you had an old beard and like Emmett Kelly kind of a thing. And then we'd find an old raggedy flannel shirt and maybe some bibbed overalls or something, and that was our costume. And if we got a store-bought costume, back then it was simply a plastic mask and something you could made out of real flimsy material that you slid into like a jumpsuit. And if we got one of those, man, we were in the high cotton there.
Well, I do remember one home assembled Halloween costume. My dad created it for me. And I'm not quite sure what it was I was wearing, but it included a hat and a snake around my neck. And after I was dressed, I said to him, "So who am I?" And he said, "You're Fidel Castro." And I said, "Is he scary?" And he said, "Oh, yeah."
Well, I don't know what the snake has to do with Fidel Castro, but go for it, right?
It made him scarier.
Yeah. We just wanted the candy.
Yeah, I didn't even know who Fidel Castro was, but obviously he had to be somebody scary.
Gosh, I wish you had a picture of that.
You know what's funny? I don't remember going to any house, knocking on the door, and them saying to me, "Who are you?" I would have had to say, "Fidel Castro." Can you imagine? Can you imagine the reaction to that? Anyway, it's not as bad as 1898 when some Avon boys, and we were Avon back then. We were all us and Avon. We're all Avon. They were having their usual Halloween celebration. And this is really interesting because the newspaper says that during the sport, Frank Alton, the constable, was helping the boys. And I'm not sure what he was helping them do, but somebody shot at the constable, but he wasn't seriously injured.
Oh, yeah, that'd go over big. Of course, it seems like in today's climate, that becomes more and more prevalent. Everybody seems to be shooting at everybody recently, but can you imagine? Those dang trick-or-treaters, give me the gun, Alma. I think I just shot Sheriff Dominic.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, that's exciting.
1910, it didn't get much better. Yeah, because there was still mayhem and pranks being practiced at Halloween time. And once again, steps were disappearing and all of that other unfortunate stuff that would make life a little more miserable for the average working person. So they used to print warnings in the newspapers. They essentially told them to cut it out. And I'm not sure how effective that was, but I have a trivia question for you now.
Oh, okay, I'm good.
All right.
Fire away.
Can you guess the most popular Halloween pranking vegetable? And I'll give you a clue. It's not a pumpkin.
Halloween pranking vegetable.
Yeah.
Vegetable.
Yeah.
A radish.
Well, no, but that's not a bad guess.
Cabbage. What would hurt if somebody hit your head with a radish?
Cabbage would hurt worse.
Cabbage?
Cabbage. Yes.
How can they do it with cabbage?
I don't know. I'm wondering if it might have been at the end of cabbage harvest season, and maybe there were some of these still laying out in the fields, and kids were going and grabbing them up. But they all wanted cabbages, and they were throwing the cabbages at houses and at windows. And
wait a minute. You threw a cabbage at a window?
Threw a cabbage at a window.
And wouldn't that break the window?
I would think it would. Well, depending on how your pitching arm was.
I guess.
I probably wouldn't be able to break a window, but I know there are those out there who are well able to do that.
Cabbage. Who'd have thunk that?
So now this prompts I'm going to call it standardized, okay? Because it appeared for several consecutive years, a standardized notice that went out in newspapers, courtesy of your local sheriff. And this one comes from Elyria. It says, notice is hereby given that the throwing of sticks, stones, cabbages, or other missiles at any residence or building, or the marking of same with chalk or paraffin, the removing of house steps, etc., or trespassing on property for the purpose of committing depredation.
Depredation. I like depredation.
Will not be tolerated on Halloween, and all police officers will be instructed to make arrests for the destruction of property, and citizens are requested to report all violations to the police.
And is that like 1913? Is that what you said?
Yes. And that'll work because all you have to do is tell people not to do something and they listen, right?
Yep. I think it's brilliant. I'm just wondering how many law enforcement officers this township had in 1913.
Well, I don't know. Probably both of them were pretty busy that night.
It was worse than the 4th of July is today. They're going from house over to this house.
Yeah. So that same notice appeared in the newspaper in 1914 and then again in 1915. And if we jump ahead a couple of years now, we're in 1918. You remember what was going on or have recollection of learning what was going on then?
Yeah, that was Spanish flu, right?
Yeah. Influenza, also called Spanish flu, also called La Grippe, Grippe, a French word.
Wasn't called the China flu?
No.
Okay.
No, Spanish.
They
were blaming Spain, I guess, for this flu. Even though, as I understand, it really wasn't Spain's fault at all. But anyway. On Halloween in 1918, our own city here in Avon Lake, Avon Lake, we were Avon Lake then, reported at least 125 cases of influenza.
Wow.
That was on Halloween in 1918.
Wow.
It was kind of a grim time because stores and other places of business had a shutdown curfew of 6:30 p.m.
Wow, imagine that. Stores had to close.
Yeah, and no exceptions for Halloween. Couldn't stay open late because it was Halloween.
Except for the bars.
Nope. No bars. Bars
no
had to
booze.
close. The bars, the pool halls, and are you ready for this? The cigar stores. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, what would we do without our cigars?
Closed. All of them shut down. And then our very own Dr. Pipes, Avon Lake's doctor, and Avon's doctor for a time, went around to his patients handing out masks.
And they weren't of the Halloween variety.
No, they were not of the Halloween variety. They were of the Spanish flu variety.
Doesn't this sound strikingly familiar?
Strikingly. But there was one doctor, not Dr. Pipes, one doctor came up with a solution, or what he thought was a solution.
Frankenstein? Dr. Frankenstein?
Ooh, this might be, because when you hear the solution, it kind of fits.
Okay.
Right? He recommended that people consume 3 yeast cakes a day, 1 at each mealtime, to ward off Spanish flu.
So I'm just going to play this a little out. I'm going to fast forward. Doesn't yeast release some kind of a gas at some point?
We're not going there.
I mean, couldn't that be the most volatile Halloween ever?
Wait a minute. It's no worse than Clorox.
You got a point there. You got a point there. But at least gas won't kill you, right?
Yeah,
Might kill your buddy, but it ain't going
to. Well, you know what? I think that we need to wrap this up so we can go plan our bobbing for yeast festivities.
Yes, and I got to get my Cabbage Patch ready because I'm going to do some throwing this year.
Say, do you think that's where Cabbage Patch dolls originated?
I'm sure. Somehow, some way. So, Sherry, again, you have thrilled me with all of the information that I never knew. I also know that, what are you doing at the cemetery this year?
Wow, really? You need to ask? I'm giving tours, of course. Private, COVID, 6 feet apart and 6 feet under tours. So if you'd like a tour for you and your group of up to 10 people, unless you're all family, then you can have 11.
Well, the Dominics are coming. You'll have 150.
150, well,
okay.
Family is family.
Family's family.
All you got to do is, we've got a sign-up genius that you can check out online, or just give a call to the Avon Lake Historical Society phone number and let us know of your interest. Leave your name and your telephone number, and we will get back to you.
Well, I'm sure that this is going to be another great year for your cemetery tours. And I'm also designing in my garage as we speak my candy delivery device, if you will. So we can give candy to the neighbors' children and not have them too close to us because we don't want cooties. So
if I come to your house, can I get a cabbage?
Whoa, I need to get some cabbage.
Okay.
No one would understand. I hated it when my neighbors gave us 2 things, okay? Apples and pennies. I was like, come on. They always, if they gave me a penny or an apple, I was waxing. Oh, what? Sorry.
Were there steps missing the next morning?
I didn't think of that. But remember the old dog poop in a bag and light it on fire? Ring the bell and take off? All right, everybody. Well, this is Tony Dominic.
Jerry Spencer.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
To a Texaco, eat lunch and drink Kool-Aid from a